All right, guys, I'm going to give you my biggest secret to replacing more of the final expense policies that are inferior to what you offer and how to get more replacement sales. My name is David Duford, owner of Duford Insurance Group, where I train and recruit agents nationally to sell things like final expense, Medicare, and annuities, both face-to-face or over the phone. So the purpose of me putting this together is to help those agents out there who have the capacity to replace existing coverage with better coverage. Now keep in mind, the tactics that I'm going to trade or share with you are only designed to ethically replace insurance, okay? There are plenty of opportunities to get your clients better coverage. For example, possibly a better price or more coverage for the same price. Or perhaps your client was clean sheeted. In other words, they were offered and approved for coverage they never should have. It kind of slipped through the underwriting cracks. And you're there in front of the client to show them what they have and then to upsell them or just cross-sell or improve or replace what they currently have with a better policy. So what is the number one way to convince a client to take what they have right now, drop it, and then take your plan out in exchange? It is this: review the policy or call the company directly. You see, I think there's different echelons of salesmanship and what has more of an impact on the thinking of an individual. It's one thing to make a claim, your policy sucks, right? That's one thing we can say, right? It's another level to say, hey, look at this policy, see how bad it is. And then it's an even better level when you call the company up and then the customer service rep tells your client how bad their policy is. So what I want you to think about when you're sitting down with the client over the phone, face-to-face, and you're reviewing a final expense plan, and maybe it just isn't all it's cracked up to be, and you know it isn't. Don't just claim that it is a bad plan. Show them that it's a bad plan. Better yet, have the own company show them that it's a bad plan. So let me kind of give you an example of how I would incorporate this into your sales presentation strategy. So you should be asking somewhere earlier on as you're pre-qualifying the client, what are you doing for your existing life insurance coverage? It's a great question to ask. Insert that if you're not already. It's great because it presumes the client has coverage, so they'll be more readily able to answer. And then you'll get the name of the company. You'll follow up with asking how much of coverage it is, how it works, etc. The next step is to tell the client to go grab the policy. You give them a command. They go do it. They follow orders. That's the kind of relationship we want with our clients. And then we get to sit next to them or verbally tell them over the phone, do you see where it says XYZ? It says return a premium plan. Do you know what that means? Do you see what happens with the death benefit in the first 2 years? We actually show them on the policy what happens. And then if there are circumstances to where maybe they just don't believe what they're being shown, but really, truly, many times that's enough, or perhaps you can't get the policy, which also happens sometimes, it's buried under a bunch of junk somewhere in the house, that's when we call up the company. And it's very simple to call up the company. First of all, put the phone on speakerphone, okay? So that you can hear what the client is saying and that the customer service is speaking. When you have the client call, just say, hey, I'm calling to ask a couple of questions. I'm sitting here with a friend of mine or even another agent, however you want to frame it, and we have some questions about my policy. The customer service rep will verify the identity and then go ahead and then answer those questions. Again, remember, the customer service reps are required to answer truthfully. You're going to get a truthful answer a lot more times than the incumbent agent who wrote the policy. That's why we call the company, not the agent, okay? And plus, there's a level of, I would say, independence in how they answer that question. An agent is always biased on some level. The insurance company has a lot more on the line for lying than an agent does, and they're on a recorded line, so it's all of this stuff is great from the standpoint of making our point. So when we get the customer service person on the phone, what you want to ask are some of the following questions. You may already know the answer to these two, but because you're asking these questions, what you're going to find is hearing it from the source is going to have a much different and I think much more profound impact on getting them to wrap their head around that, yes, this is not the best plan for me. You want to ask questions like, is this a term life or whole life insurance plan? So maybe you're working with a company that has a term that cancels at 80. Maybe you know that. Well, go ahead and ask them that. Oh, it's term insurance. When does it cancel? Ask, does the premium ever go up in price at any point whatsoever? This will be the death knell for these 5-year escalating term insurance plans we all see in the field. Also, it's a great way to identify what we call universal life plans that may have a point in time where the premium will go up. Again, to get your client to realize the kind of policy they have, while it's been great, is kind of going to blow up at a future date, and they need to be aware of it. I also confirm how much coverage they have, how the plan works. If it's a 2-year waiting period or a multi-year waiting product, I'll ask them, so what happens if the client dies today? Or I'll have the client ask, what happens if I die today? And am I covered, and how much am I covered for? I want the customer service rep to tell my client exactly what that means. Well, you're covered for the premiums paid in plus 10%. So in other words, I'll follow up and say, hey, so what you're saying is if the client pays $50 a month and they die in month 10, they get $500 back plus 10%. Is that what you're saying? So this is not covering the full death benefit. That's what you're saying, right, Mr. Customer Service Rep? Yes, I am. So if you get them to say all this stuff, it has such profound impacts on the ability to ascertain a replacement when it is appropriate for the client. So please be doing this on any opportunities where a replacement makes sense for the client and is a verifiable way to improve the coverage. Obviously, don't use this tactic to manipulate a client into a plan that's not good for them, okay? We've got this like superpower, right? And we've got to use it judiciously. We can't abuse our powers. We've got this privilege called a state-regulated insurance license. So we want to make sure we do this when it makes sense for the client. And trust me, there's lots of opportunities to do that. You will see this in the field. And if you're not calling the company, you're either three-weighing it in on a telesales call or doing it face-to-face on speakerphone, going through these questions I've asked, you're leaving a lot of money on the table, but more importantly, you're not helping your clients as well as you could be. Sometimes they have to be viscerally shown I want to call it a mistake they made, but the crap that they were sold. And what better way to do it than see what it says in the official documentation, or even better yet, hearing it from the company that will tell them the truth and hearing it from the horse's mouth, as they say. My name is David DuFord. Hope you enjoyed this training. If you like this kind of training, I do this kind of training daily on live training calls in my agency, Monday through Friday, on all sorts of topics if you become an agent. We cover things like live telesales call analysis, live sales presentation analysis face-to-face for final expense agents, carrier training, replacement training like this, appointment setting and door knocking training. If you want intensive training on becoming a top producer at things like final expense Medicare and annuities, it's exactly what we do in the DuFord Insurance Group. And all you have to do to learn more is there's links above or possibly below. Click the link. It'll take you to a website that explains more about how my agency works. If you like the video, subscribe. Certainly leave a comment or a question below, and I'll be happy to respond personally. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you next time.